Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this video we're gonna be starting on adding rush to our game. We probably won't finish adding it since it might take a little bit or a few steps to actually finish, but we're gonna do about like half of the work today. Sorry I haven't uploaded so often. I'm trying to figure out ideas that I can actually like process into one video and stuff like that. But anyways, start. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go into set rooms, and actually maybe we should create our rush monster first. So before we do anything with our set rooms, but you can just put this in workspace, I'm just gonna go over here and I'm gonna put in a part, and then I'm just gonna make it like a little bit of a square, I guess. Not gonna do much with it, probably something like this. And now if you want to make it how like rush is, how rush has like a face running towards you or whatever, you can go and hit the plus on the part and insert a decal, and then you can put this on which side you want it. It should be on front, and then you can put any image in here for the texture. So let's say I don't really think I have any images that would work for this. I guess I'm just gonna put a burrito because I have it. So let's say you want a burrito running at you, then you could just put that for the decal. So I'm just gonna keep that there, and I'm just gonna change the part transparency to 1. So the only thing everyone's gonna see coming at them is, well, a burrito. Actually, I'm just gonna keep this like this and just make it a little bit smaller. So with this is our rush model, but instead I'm gonna name it, actually I'm just gonna name it rush. You can name it anything you want, but I'll just keep it like this for now. Now you can add some properties to rush. So what I'm gonna do is hit the plus on rush and insert a configuration folder. So this isn't a regular folder, this is literally something called configuration, and this is just where we're gonna put like data for our rush little NPC thing. So I'm just gonna rename this to config just so this is easier. Capitalize that. So first thing I think I'm just gonna put is I'm going to put, say, a number value, and I'm just gonna put the speed in here. So this is how fast you want rush to go through the hallways. So let's say we're gonna make this work like a player walk speed. So you know how 16 walk speed, the pace of that. So I want it to be like obviously faster than the player, so the player can't outrun it. So I'm just gonna do something like 50. So just imagine that this is walk speed. I'm just gonna rename it to speed. You can right click it or hit F2 to rename something. I'm just gonna name it speed. So this is gonna like set up data for our rush. This should be everything we need actually for the config. So now you can put rush instead of replicated storage for now, as we don't really have to do too much with it. So now something we have to do in our rooms is we have to make a path that our rush can take. So basically similar to how we put like start and end or all of these points for furniture, we're gonna put points that rush can follow throughout each door. So if we want rush to go through this type of door, then we're gonna put like a point here at the start and a point at the end. But if we want rush to go through a door that's curved like this, we're gonna put a point at the start, a point here, and then a point at the end, which can just be the start of the other one, just so rush knows which way to go and stuff. So we can start off with our room 1. I'm just gonna make the points blue because why not? So you can just make it one size. It doesn't really have to be big or anything. And then I'm just gonna make it a little bit larger and slightly transparent. So I want rush to come from the middle of the room, or about the middle, something like this. You could position this wherever these points are is where rush is going to like be. So if you want rush to start in the middle of the room, like halfway above the ground and like over here, then you can do that. You just gotta move it to wherever you want it to start. And now in our rooms, so I'm going to go to room 1. Similar to our furniture points, I'm going to hit the plus on room 1 and add a folder. And then you can rename this once again by either right clicking it and pressing rename or pressing F2. And I'm just going to name this rush points. So then I'm going to put this part into rush points, and make sure you anchor the part, because if you don't, it's just going to drop to the ground, and we don't want rush like doing whatever the part's doing on the ground. So we can just name this point 1. So I don't think we're going to need a point for the ending of the room, since the ending is attached to the start of another room. We could just use the point that we put at the start of other rooms. So what you can do is you can either right click and press duplicate on this folder, or you can just press Ctrl D while selecting it and drag it into room 2, and then we can move over our starting point. I'm just going to move it to the start of our other room, something like this. Just align it the best you can, doesn't have to be perfect. And now since this room is a bit curved, as you can see it goes like a little curve right here, we can copy this point, and I'm just gonna drag it. I'm gonna look through the top instead of the inside and see where it's like kind of centered, and then you can duplicate it one more time and you can drag it over here, and then it should be good from here, since right here this ending point will be connected to the start point, so it should be automatically lined up like that. So then you can rename point 1 to point 2, and this point 1 to point 3. Just make sure you rename them in order. Once again, if you want to duplicate them, you can right click and hit duplicate, or select it and press Ctrl D. Now I'm going to duplicate this folder the same way, just pressing Ctrl D, and I'm going to put it into room 3. Now I'm going to delete 2 of the points, and I'm just going to drag this one, the first point, to where it needs to be. And since this is also a curved room, actually I could keep it the same way, but I'm just going to make new points, and I'm actually going to look in the inside here just so I can make sure I put it at all the right spots, since this one does look a little bit different from the outside. So just gonna line it up with the door, and then that should be good. So then once again you can rename your points, so point 2 and point 3, and you should do the same with your special rooms, unless you don't want rush to go through those rooms, which in the actual doors, any special room like door 50 or door 100, you don't see rush going through, so I'm not going to be doing that. So now we have our rush points set up so rush can move through all of our rooms. So here's the thing, if we make rush kill the player when it's like in a certain range, well, we have to actually check if the player is in a closet or in a drawer or whatever you want to call it, since indoors, if you're inside of a closet or like a little drawer place, rush won't actually get you. So first thing we can do is actually, let's take our rush back out, and we just want to give rush like a hitbox. So what I mean by hitbox is, if we go over here and let's say rush is running through this hallway, since the size of rush is only this small little square, only stuff in this small little square is going to actually die when it gets hit. So what we're going to do is we can just duplicate the part by pressing Ctrl D, and then we can put the part inside of the rush, like the rush with the decal on it and such. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to change this to 0.25. We can make this a little bit smaller, and then we could just make this, well, larger. So we want this to be basically the size of a hallway, and I'll explain more why we're doing this in a second. And you can remove the decal and make this transparent. So the reason we're doing this is because we want it so if the player is in the hallway, they don't just die from hitting this small square, because the player can just stand right here and they'll live perfectly fine. But if we add this hitbox, which basically it's just like a box that it's invisible, it's just like, I'm not sure how to say it, it's just like a hitbox, a box people can hit that's larger than the actual like entity it's inside of, we want it so if the player hits this invisible square, then it'll die, since this hallway is much bigger than this small one. Just so the player can't stand on the sides and avoid rush instead of going into a closet like they should be going to. So now that we have a little bit of a hitbox, we're just going to rename it to hitbox. And if we're moving this, we want to weld the hitbox to rush. And what I mean by weld is like when you're actually building something and you weld it, you basically attach it together just so it doesn't like fall apart. So if we go to, it should be, you might have forgot, it's one of these. Oh yeah, create, and then we go, and if you go down when you hit create right here under the model tab, you should find something called weld, and then your cursor should turn into something like this. And I did want to weld the hitbox, so I'm gonna actually select the hitbox, see if I can create a new one. So select the hitbox, then create the weld, and now since you have this little cursor with this little red thing following it, go and select rush. Like this little red line should start inside of the hitbox, and then you can click on rush. So this should connect rush and the hitbox together so they don't like fall apart or anything, or separate, or one thing moves and the other thing doesn't. And something you might want to do is disable collision for rush, because well, when the player dies, you don't want this dragging them along the ground and flinging them everywhere, because that could get buggy. You just want them to die and fall on the floor or something. So with our hitbox, we can put rush back in replicated storage, because now we have a way to actually kill the player properly. And now we actually need to create something in the player for rush to be able to check if they're inside of the closet or drawer. So in script service, we're actually going to insert a new script instead of adding on to this script. So go to script service, hit the plus, and insert a script. So this may not be the best way to do it, but we should be able to make this safe enough to where it's not easy to be exploited. So what we're going to do is rename script, and we're just going to rename this to player added, since well, this is going to be handling everything that happens when the player is added, so just a easy name to understand. And now we're going to make a player added function, so game.players.playerAdded connect function player. So we're just getting when a player is added to the game, and then we're connecting it to a function, and we're putting player here as a parameter because the first parameter when the player joins is the actual player. So whenever we type player in, we're referencing everything inside of the player. So like if we go to players here, basically when I join, I'll have a backpack, player scripts, and all that stuff. When I put player, it's basically referencing like my username right here, and I can access any of the contents inside of me. So it's pretty handy, so we know that we're talking about this player and we don't have to figure out which player just joined. So with this, we can add something into the player, which is going to be a number value. So we can do a local is in closet. I'm just going to put closet for this, equals instance dot new bool value. We're actually going to do a bool value, and then comma player. So this is making a variable called is in closet, and I'm just going to reopen the script real quick. And it's going to make a new instance, which is an instance is like that rush that we just created, like a part in the game. That's an instance of a part. And like these rooms, these are models, so we can put model in here. So basically we can put anything in here that we can normally add into Roblox Studio, basically anything. Something we might not be able to. So this is just creating a new instance. It's basically like the same thing as hitting the plus in workspace. I know I just said basically a lot, but I'm not sure what other word to use for there. But it's the same thing as hitting plus in workspace and inserting something in the list that we have, except it's in a script instead. So we're just going to be creating a bool value, which if you hit the plus and you type in bool value, as you can see, we can add in a bool value. If we look over here, class name bool value. So it's the same thing as doing that, it's just in a script, and we're going to be putting it in the player. So when we put a comma, this is the same thing as doing is in closet dot parent equals player, but instead, just to make it a little bit quicker, we can do comma player, and that's the same thing as parenting it or putting it inside of the player. So like we hit the plus on my username over here and insert a bool value, that's the same thing as doing it in there. Parent is just whatever something is inside of. So now we're going to do is in closet equals false by default, and make sure you put dot value because we want to make sure we're talking about the value. So if we insert a bool value real quick and we go to the properties, as you can see we have a value here, and we want to be talking about the value and toggling this true and false, because if we just do is in closet equals false, well, the game or the studio doesn't exactly know what we're trying to change to false. So we have to specify we're trying to change the value of the is in closet bool value that we made to false, and we want it false by default so the player isn't automatically like in a closet when they join, even though they probably aren't. So now we can edit our rush hitbox. So something we can do is go into our hitbox, hit the plus, and insert a script. So now we're going to rename this script to hitbox function, and here's how we're going to make it so rush or the player dies when rush goes near or past the player. So make sure this script is a server script, since we're going to be mainly doing stuff this, or rush is going to be in workspace and we're going to be messing around with player hit functions and stuff, so it's best we use a server script for this. So what we're going to do first is we're going to actually get when any player in the game touches the hitbox part. So first things first, we're going to do script.parent.touched connect function hit. So when script's parent is touched, or whatever the script is inside of, so the parent of the script is what it's inside of, which is the hitbox part, and then when this part is touched, the hitbox, we're going to connect it to a function and hit. This parameter is whatever touched the part. So this can be another part or the player's body parts or whatever, but now that we've checked if something touched the part, we want to make sure it's the player that touched it, because we can't exactly kill a part. I mean, unless you add health to it, you can't really do that. So we have to check if it's the player. So first, let's actually get the player from this hit parameter. Let's do local player equals game get service players get player from character hit dot parent. So we're getting a service called players, and then we're going to use something called get player from character. And now we're doing hit.parent. And the reason we're doing hit.parent is because, say the thing that touched the hitbox is the player's leg. The parent of the player's leg is the player's character. And since this is get player from character, we're trying to find the character, which would most likely be the hit's parent or the leg's parent. And then we're putting this all into a variable. So we can do if player then, and basically this is like replacing this player right here, except with all of that, but we're just shortening it so we don't have to type this out every single time we want to talk about the player. So if it is the player, then what we're going to do is we're going to do if player wait for child, and then if we go to our player added script in server script service and we see the name, oh, we actually have to name our is in closet. So is in closet dot name equals is in closet. So the reason we still have to name it is we may name the variable, but when you make a new bool value, as you saw before, it didn't automatically set the name to something. So we have to set the name of that value to is in closet, similar to just changing the name of the script or something. So this is going to be the name of the value. So if player wait for child is in closet dot value does not equal true, then we can actually kill the player. So we're just checking if is in client. So we're waiting for something in the player called is in closet. I don't know why I keep saying is in child, but is in closet. This value is not equal to true. So if it's anything but true, then we can kill the player, because we don't want to kill the player if they are in the closet. So if is in closet is not true, then we're going to do player dot character wait for child humanoid dot health equals 0. So this is going to be going into the player's character and then waiting for a child called humanoid, which the humanoid handles the player's health, walk speed, max health, and all that type of stuff. And we're going to set the player's health to 0 if they aren't in a closet. So now whenever something touches this hitbox and it's not in a closet, then it's going to, well, die. So now that we have that all out of the way, that's us setting up basically everything we need for Rush. But in the next video, what we're going to do is actually make Rush move through all these points, and we're going to actually add the closets since we haven't added that into the furniture. And we're going to have to make that change our value here to true, so Rush actually can't kill you when you go inside of it. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and yeah, see ya.